This is CBC Here and Now.
We have already filed a grievance against the employer on the return to school plan.
Teachers are back to school today, preparing for the big reopening next week, but the union says those teachers don't feel safe.
You deprive someone of human interaction for extended periods of time, then you do them psychological harm.
2 former inmates and their lawyers are beginning a class action lawsuit against the provincial government over the use of solitary confinement.
Rain on the way for the next few days, but will it last into the long weekend?
Welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes.
And I'm Anthony Germain. Teachers are back in school today for the first time since March, but they've gone back with some deep reservations.
Now their union, the NLTA, has filed an occupational health and safety grievance over the back-to-school plan. Here and Now's Heather Gillis reports.
It's day one for teachers. They're back in classrooms like this one in Corner Brook, preparing for students to arrive next week. A teacher there posted this photo inside the school today. Dean Ingram is president of the NLTA. He's challenging the safety of the back-to-school plan, which allows for 1 meter physical distancing and masks in class for grades 7 and up, where that's not possible.
We have already filed a grievance against the employer on the return to school plan, how it meets occupational health and safety compliance with provincial legislation.
He says if teachers feel unsafe at school, they have a right to file a complaint too.
Should they feel that their workplace violates occupational health and safety regulations, they should exercise their rights to file a complaint, and our staff is there and available to assist them with exactly that.
Ingram says teachers want enhanced mask wearing, proper PPE, and assurances COVID-19 outbreaks will be dealt with. He says they're working through the grievance process on sick leave should teachers come in contact with COVID.
We'd also hold that there needs to be access to enhanced testing so that for students that exhibit some of the symptoms that may not have COVID, that can be cleared up much quicker.
At Tuesday's Safe September rally, teachers and parents called for smaller class sizes, something Education Minister Tom Osborne says requires a lot of analysis.
It's something that would require a great deal of time and focus.
But Osborne says Alberta Premier Jason Kenney has already crunched the numbers for that province. Kenney says smaller class sizes are unrealistic and would cost $4 billion.
You'd have to build 800 new schools and certify 13,000 new teachers. It's simply fictitious. It has nothing to do with reality.
It's not just this province. Across the country, there are similar concerns about the back-to-school plans. 4 teachers' unions in Ontario have filed complaints with that province's Labour Board. And here at home, Osborne says there'll be an update on the back-to-school plan tomorrow. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, teachers back in school today getting ready for the students, but some children won't be going back next week. One family near Clarenville is keeping all of their kids at home because one of them has a compromised immune system. Candice Lawler in Portland has 3 children and her middle son has severe asthma, but she says the back-to-school plan doesn't have any accommodations for students with health problems like him to ensure their safety, so she's keeping all of her children at home to prevent her asthmatic son from getting sick. Lawler says her local school administrators have been understanding, but she wonders why the school district doesn't have a plan to provide online learning.
So I do want to say both of our schools, both of the administrators have been positively wonderful. Every step of the way, they have assured me that they will support our family in any way that we need. However, it shouldn't be on them. We shouldn't be in this position. They had since March, the school board, the government had since March to come up with a contingency plan that would ensure equal access to education for all students. That would ensure that my 10-year-old knows that his education and his health matter. And they didn't do that. Somebody dropped the ball.
Now stay with us. We'll have my full interview with Candice Lawler and her concerns and the other children she has to teach. That's coming up in about half an hour.
Well, officials used today's weekly COVID-19 briefing to try to ease tensions as students head back to class. Here Now's Peter Cowan was dialed in at today's briefing. So Peter, what did we hear from the Premier and other officials?
The message today, Carolyn, was very much addressed at a lot of those anxieties that you were just talking about there. The anxieties from teachers heading back to class, parents who are concerned about whether a school environment is going to be safe. And what we heard today from not only the Premier, but the Education Minister and the Chief Medical Officer of Health is not only is it safe to send kids back to class, but there are a lot of other benefits, and this is something that is safe to do.
We are taking every measure possible to make sure you are safe in school. I know it's scary. I know it's strange. And I know it's weird. You've been out of school for a long time. But it's going to be okay. My wife Allison and I understand. Our 3 children are in the same boat. Like you, they are excited about going back to school, but are also a little nervous.
The Federation of School Councils is hearing regularly from parents about the year ahead. They are anxious about the uncertainty with the pandemic, but they want their children back in school. They are worried about the amount of instructional time that was missed last year when school was closed. Students are saying they need to be back in school.
Our learnings from this pandemic and our low prevalence of cases has positioned us well to begin reopening our schools. This school year brings with it new challenges as we learn to live with COVID-19, but it also brings with it familiarities that will help support our children and youth. Returning to school is a balance of weighing the harms of the virus and the benefits of our kids to learn with their peers and have the support of the whole school community. We know that we may have cases and protocols are in place to swiftly respond.
Interestingly, we heard there the mention of the anxiety about what's coming, and even that is changing. We just found out that the Education Minister is going to have another news conference at 1 o'clock tomorrow where things are going to change yet again. We'll just have to wait and find out what. Carolyn?
Thanks so much, Peter. That's here now's Peter Cowan reporting live. Well, the province's privacy commissioner says the town of Howley in western Newfoundland went a step too far when it named people on social media who traveled outside the province and were required to self-isolate. His report, released today, says councillors and town staff named travelers in emails, and the mayor made a series of posts about them on a Facebook group. Now, the privacy commissioner says those posts were likely meant to protect the public, but the town isn't responsible for administering or enforcing COVID-19 health orders. And that means there was no valid reason to disclose any personal information. The commissioner is advising the town to review its social media policies. Well, 2 former inmates and their lawyers are beginning a class action lawsuit against the provincial government. They're seeking compensation for anyone who was kept in solitary confinement for 15 days or more. Here now's Mark Quinn reports.
It's just counterproductive and it's wrong.
Lawyer Lynn Moore says putting people in solitary confinement is a brutal practice that simply shouldn't be used. She said it harms people in facilities like this, and it definitely doesn't rehabilitate them.
When you deprive someone of human interaction for extended periods of time, then you do them psychological harm. We don't make society safer if we put people in prison and they come out worse than when they went in. They come out damaged, they come out with exacerbated mental health issues.
The lawsuit was started by former inmates Paul Hennebury and Nikita Pierce, who were put in solitary confinement for prolonged periods at Her Majesty's Penitentiary and the Clarenville Women's Prison.
She recollects that she was in solitary confinement for 24 days. She went in there, she found it to be stressful, it induced anxiety, it eventually led to depression to the point where she was prescribed medications.
Locke said the lawyers chose to go with a class action for a number of reasons.
Sometimes to prosecute an individual action, the financial resources necessary just simply outweigh what could ultimately be realized at the end of the action. There's also the benefit of attracting, media attention and drawing the government's attention to this issue, and we're hopeful that can serve as a bit of a change agent.
The class action has not been certified by a judge. Moore says the next step will be to make a court application for that to happen. She expects the province won't file a statement of defense before then. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, there's word at this hour of an oil spill at the site of the Muskrat Falls hydroelectric development. The company has ordered a contractor to temporarily shut down after a quantity of turbine oil was released from the powerhouse and into the water. There's a sheen visible, but Nalcor says the spill is contained to a small area and not expected to move into the river or downstream. Crews are trying to figure out how much spilled, but the company suspects it isn't a lot. The contractor isn't allowed to resume working until the cleanup happens and the investigation is completed. Well, the Rooms is collecting and archiving the experiences of residential school survivors from this province.
We're always put down. That was the biggest thing that I found and the hardest thing that I had to overcome.
The Healing and Commemoration collection is available online. According to the Rooms, the collection is a launching point for people to learn more about what happened at residential schools in this province from the survivors themselves in their own words.
The collection itself is video, audio, and transcript files of the testimonies and stories.
And we'll have more from archivist Kayla Burry later in the show.
Well, when a strike shut down Dominion stores, there were loads of perishable fruits and vegetables still left sitting on the shelves, and now some of that has been donated to nonprofit groups. Here's how the Jimmy Pratt Foundation is using a tractor-trailer load of food.
Here we have a tractor-trailer load full of food that came from Dominion in Long Pond, directly out of a transport truck, so it wasn't even unloaded from their truck. And so we managed to secure this food on Friday afternoon and get it into a reefer truck. We operate an organization that focuses research and public discourse around ways we can improve outcomes for vulnerable children and their family. So when COVID struck, we realized that we had to kind of take our focus away from policy and start looking at the things that truly mattered in front of us, and food was one of those important things. So we started what we're calling a community food helpline. So basically it connects residents of St. John's with food programs in their area and does delivery as well. If someone cannot avail of a food bank or a food program, we do provide a hamper for them.
That's perfect. I feel like
we are now at Domestic Moving and Storage on Black Marsh Road, and they were kind enough to give us some warehouse space that is already currently being used by Home Again Furniture to put some of their furniture together. So obviously they're good community partners. We sent trucks out yesterday to community centers, some food banks. We had various different food programs and food banks show up to take some for their own food programs. We actually delivered enough food for 200 people out to St. Catharines. And so normally we deal with children and families. The folks out in St. Catharines are more of a senior age. And I was told yesterday that they couldn't even go to the store and buy milk down in St. Catharines yesterday. There was none in the area. We sent down half a pallet load full of milk. So I'm pretty sure last night there was people having a fresh meal with cauliflower and broccoli and fresh potatoes and all sorts of fresh produce that they wouldn't normally have access to. On Friday, when we were trying to source a place, it became very clear to me that none of the food banks have a capability of being able to take this kind of fresh produce. And it's a concern to me that if we do find ourselves in another snowmageddon position, that we don't really have the proper storage, refrigeration storage, and even distribution network to get good quality nutritional food out to the people who need it. And so that is something that I'm certainly going to be taking forward as a lesson learned from this and hopefully work on improving.
Well, the province is going ahead with the plastic bag ban despite the pandemic. Work on that ban, as you may recall, began months ahead of COVID. The start date, however, that remains on track. The ban will come into effect on October 1st. The government says the cost of alternative bags, things like reusable paper bags, that is going to be at the discretion of businesses.
We're under a ridge of high pressure that's dominating the weather today. Now, as we head through the next couple of days, an area of low pressure is going to move in, and that's going to mean that we're going to see some showers, but the weekend is looking up. So I'll have all those details and a look at the long-range forecast coming up.
Ashley joins us with a look at the weather forecast. And Ashley, it was a bit of a chilly start to the day, but it turned into a gorgeous day in St. John's.
It certainly did. The big ridge of high pressure was in place today. Yes, gorgeous evening tonight as well. A little chilly in the wind, but we've even got a couple of people kayaking here behind me in the gut tonight. So certainly a nice night to get out. Let's take a look at the setup right now. I mentioned that ridge of high pressure in place, and then we've got an area of low pressure just skirting west of Labrador, and that's bringing some showers in for you. And if we zoom in, you can see not a whole lot of cloud cover happening across the island. However, on the southern portion of the island, in that onshore flow, we are seeing some showers. That did keep temperatures a little chilly for you along the south coast. 14 degrees in Burgeo. Otherwise, all that sunshine. 19 degrees in St. John's, 21 in Badger, 23 in Corner Brook, and then a beautiful day for coastal Labrador as well. 22 degrees for Cartwright, 19 was the afternoon high for Nain. So as we head through the night tonight, that low that's skirting west of Labrador will continue to bring some showers for Lab West, some periods of rain as well up through northern portions of Labrador, head towards central Labrador, and eventually for southeastern portions as we head into the early morning hours. But not a whole lot happening for Newfoundland rather. Just along southern portions, we'll see the cloud cover and the potential for some drizzle and fog as we head through the overnight. It will not be nearly as cold as it was last night. 10 degrees will be the overnight low in Grand Falls, Windsor. However, because of that ridge of high pressure to the south and that low to the north, it's tightening the gradient, and all that means is those winds are picking up. So it will be a windy evening and overnight for Labrador, and then eventually for the west coast as well. About 40 to 70 kilometer per hour winds is what we're expecting into the early morning hours. So that rain will eventually make its way towards southeastern portions of Labrador along the west coast as well. Otherwise, we're looking at a mix of sun and cloud through the day. Some showers, scattered showers will make their way towards central into the afternoon, and it should stay dry for the Avalon through most of the day. However, we will see that risk of showers move in the evening and overnight, and then clearing skies up through Labrador. You'll see some periods of rain will develop again towards the early morning for the northern peninsula. You will notice that the winds will be strong again tomorrow, so 50 to 60 kilometer per hour gusts, and a little bit more humid as well. So 21 degree day expected for St. John's with plenty of sunshine, and then temperatures very similar in Labrador with teens in those coastal areas, especially along the south coast as we get into that onshore flow. Port aux Basques looking at about 16 degrees tomorrow. By Friday, there's those periods of rain making their way in again for the west coast and southeastern portions of Labrador. It will stay generally gray, more cloud cover in play for Friday for sure, with the potential for some showers. That's going to stick around pretty much through the first half of Saturday, and then the skies clear as a big ridge of high pressure starts to edge its way in. So that's good news as we head towards the weekend for sure. Here's our temperatures on Friday. Be a little bit more humid again, 21 to 23 degrees pretty much across the board. Again, a little cooler in those coastal areas into the high teens. 18 for Cartwright, 21 with plenty of sunshine for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and then we're getting into some of that cooler air up through, at least in the teens for Nain and Lab City, around 14, 15 degrees. That's the story for Saturday as well. Again, those showers will be in the morning for along the west coast. Gonna stay gray in the east for most of Saturday, but it is looking like those temperatures will be beautiful again, 20 to 24 degrees. Again, a little bit of humidity in play, and then once we get those showers out of the way for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland on Saturday, Sunday and Monday are looking beautiful at this point. Plenty of sunshine for that last long weekend. 19 degrees with overnight lows, pretty beautiful as well, into those double digits. Pretty much the exact same story through central and western Newfoundland. You're looking at temperatures flirting with the 20 degree, 21 degree mark, and some sunshine through Sunday and Monday, and then up through Labrador. Eastern Labrador, things will be a little bit more unsettled on Sunday with gray skies, chance of showers on Monday, and then the opposite is true for western Labrador. Wanted to share this beautiful shot. If you got out last night and looked, the full moon was rising, or when the full moon was rising, absolutely spectacular. This shot was taken in Port aux Basques. Thank you so much to Kathy Ann for sending that photo in. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Ashley. Well, it's been a busy time for sewers in this province. Ever since masks were made mandatory in some indoor spaces, they have hunched over their sewing machines trying to keep up with the demand. And that includes Erin Cole in Botwood. When she's not wearing a mask at work, she's making them at home. And as Here and Now's Garrett Berry shows us, her design draws on some personal experience.
I picked up some material squares from Walmart because I was going to try to sew something. I didn't know what, sometimes I go into bouts being really crafty. So I put them on the buy and sell, and I think by the end of that week I had upwards of 85 sold. When they became mandatory, from about 1:30 that afternoon till I went to bed at 11 o'clock that night, I had taken about 85 orders. That one day. I get up in the morning at 8:30, 9:30, and I go out and I sit down in my chair and I don't move unless I go to eat or I have a call or whatever else. And I go to bed at around 10:30, so I spend pretty well most of my day sewing. My family's been really supportive. My mom, she's in Grand Falls, she's calling me, do you need any material? Do you need any elastic? Do you have enough material? If I buy this, will you make this mask for me? I finished my work term in July of last year, and I've been working with Freaks Ambulance ever since. We have to wear the pleated medical masks on every call we go on, and as a glasses wearer, I can't stand them because they just bend over your nose, and when you breathe heavy or whatever, they fog up your glasses. But with these, I adjust them in pattern enough so they fit underneath my nose, and I can tuck my glasses over top of them so they don't fog up. And I enjoy them, and I've had a lot of people say the same thing, they don't find their glasses fogging up, and they find them a lot easier to breathe through. I'm gonna hope that this is this mandatory masks is not for the long term, but if it is, I'm hoping that I'm gonna make it easier for people to wear them because they are comfortable. I enjoy them. I dislike wearing masks everywhere I go, but I know that I have to, so they are comfortable.
Nice. Well, staying in central Newfoundland, here's something you don't see all that often, a moose and her two calves.
Two of them. Dean Cull sent us these photos to Here Now from the Cobb's Pond Boardwalk in Gander. Nice close shots, not really socially distanced, but then again, they're in a moose bubble, so they're okay.
Right. We'll be back with more news after the break.
Well, one issue that did not come at today's remarkably brief COVID-19 briefing is about students with compromised immune systems. Now, a couple of days ago in Here and Now, we reported on a letter that was sent 3 weeks ago. The English School District has informed the department that there is no contingency plan to provide learning to students with those families. Candice Lawler has 3 children, and her middle child, Adam, is someone who has severe asthma. And Candice joins me now from Portland. So Candice, tell me about Adam's situation.
Well, Adam is diagnosed with asthma. He also has a pretty weak immune system. If it's going around, he catches it, and he gets it really, really bad. His airways are narrow and rigid, and he overproduces mucus. So it's a combination of things going there. He would be considered at risk or vulnerable to increased complications from COVID.
So you've got 2 other children, an older son and a younger daughter. What is the impact of going back to school on your family this year?
So we talked a lot about this since school shut down, what we would do come September. And we knew from the beginning that Adam wouldn't be going back to school unless there was a viable vaccine that was readily available. But of course, you don't want to pull your children if you don't have to. However, in talking to all 3 of them, we realized that we couldn't safely send any of them back. I mean, I was prepared to homeschool the 2 little ones right from the beginning, and we were really hoping that there would be an online option for our oldest, who is going to grade 10 this year. I mean, I'm okay homeschooling him, but I would feel better if he could follow his class.
This is a teenage brother who's staying home basically for the welfare of his brother, right?
Yes, yeah. We discussed it as a family, and realistically, it wouldn't be good for his mental health to be constantly worried about whether or not he was going to bring something home to his brother that could have catastrophic consequences.
Okay, so you've got a younger daughter, you've got Adam, and you've got the older teenager. How do you plan to educate all 3 since there are different learning levels in your home?
Oh, I really should have shown you my planner.
I can imagine.
I figured a plan out. I can't guarantee that it's going to work. We've decided that this year we are going to focus on progression, not perfection. I am going to kind of flop back and forth. I've organized our days into learning blocks, and so the 2 little ones will work independently while I work with my eldest, and then we'll switch.
What kind of support have you had, or what do you make of the support that's available to you, given the fact the district, as we pointed out in the introduction, says there's no contingency plan for people in your situation?
So I do want to say both of our schools, both of the administrators have been positively wonderful. Every step of the way, they have assured me that they will support our family in any way that we need. However, it shouldn't be on them. We shouldn't be in this position. They had since March, the school board, the government had since March to come up with a contingency plan that would ensure equal access to education for all students. That would ensure that my 10-year-old knows that his education and his health matter. And they didn't do that. Somebody dropped the ball.
You know, when Adam found out that there was a back-to-school plan and all that, he spoke to you, right? He raised an issue of concern with you. Can you tell me about that?
For Adam, it's been a difficult go for him. When COVID began being talked about in school, there was some conversation about, it's only the vulnerable who are at risk. It's only elderly people and people who have other health problems that are at risk. And so for him, he came home and he was quite upset. It was, Mom, do I not matter? Am I not important? So when he found out about the back to school plan and the fact that there is nothing in place for families like ours, it was another message to my child that he doesn't matter.
Well, Candace, for any moms or dads watching this interview tonight who have similar issues with their children, what advice would you have as we head into what looks like a fairly turbulent school year?
I would say trust your instincts. If you feel your child is compromised, if you don't feel that your child is going to have a safe year at school, then trust your instincts on that. It's not going to be a perfect year in school. Probably won't be a perfect year at home either, but it's 1 year. You can do it.
All right, Candace, appreciate that. And good luck to you and all your kids. Maybe we'll check in with you as we get closer to midterms. How's that?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
I'll let you know if I'm, puddling mess on the floor or anything.
I'm sure you'll be fine. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks so much.
Once upon a time, just to talk about residential schools was taboo. Leave it. Don't talk about it. Shut up. Oh.
A collection of powerful stories from the survivors of residential schools in this province. We'll have more on the Healing and Commemoration Project up next. Welcome back. The Rooms has launched an online exhibit, a collection of stories and memories from residential school survivors in this province. It's called the Healing and Commemoration Project, and this afternoon I spoke with archivist Kayla Burry about what this means for the survivors.
Since time immemorial, Labrador has been home to the Innu and Inuit peoples.
Well, the collection has been launched online right now. The Healing and Commemoration Collection is a partnership between the Rooms Provincial Archives and the Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada. Under the leadership and guidance of former students, we've collected and stored and archived former student stories and testimonies from 5 schools in Labrador and 1 in St. Anthony. The whole collection itself was collected as part of the Healing and Commemoration Project.
Once upon a time, just to talk about residential schools was taboo.
The collection itself is video, audio, and transcript files of the testimonies and stories told by the former students as they were told in their own words, as well as photographs from the official apology and artifacts.
We're always put down. That was the biggest thing that I found, and the hardest thing that I had to overcome.
Do you have a sense of what it was like for the victims of the residential schools to tell their stories again? Many of them have told their stories many times over the years. I'm sure it's difficult every time. Do you have a sense of what it was like for them being able to tell those stories and put them into a permanent record?
Some of them, it was very emotional. You can see it in the recordings themselves. Some of them had positive experiences, some of them had negative. It was all a very unique experience for many of them, but the resilience and bravery that they've shown in the years since they've left the schools has been absolutely inspiring and phenomenal to see.
He said, "Don't you ever speak your language again in this school," with as much venom as he could muster.
A team from the federal government under Ministerial Special Representative James Igloliorte, they traveled to 8 communities in Labrador as well as St. John's and Ottawa, and sat down in healing circles as well as went to people's homes and took individual stories. And the stories are vastly different from individual to individual.
What do you hope people who visit this digital exhibition, what do you hope that they get out of this?
I hope that it opens their eyes that Labrador was also part of the residential school network, even though they were not included in the original Indian residential school apology. I hope that the national conversation is expanded to include Labrador and that they feel that their voices are heard. Labrador was actually left out of the original apology delivered by Prime Minister Stephen Harper in 2008. They launched their own lawsuit and received an apology from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in November of 2017. This is important because they have expressed a desire to be included in the national conversation of truth and reconciliation, and we hope that this is helpful in their healing processes and that this gives them that opportunity to have their voices heard. We are developing a physical exhibition set to open on September 30th, 2020, which is also Orange Shirt Day. It's the National Commemorative Day for Residential School Survivors. The exhibition is focused on the students' experiences. We have archival photographs from our collection, from Them Days collection and others. We're using artifacts and art pieces as well to tell the story of the residential schools through the eyes of the students themselves and the testimonies and stories that they provided us.
You might recall a big story back in May when the New Brunswick government announced that a COVID-19 outbreak in Campbellton was caused by a doctor who did not self-isolate after returning from Quebec. Well, the doctor says he was unfairly targeted and has suffered extreme hardship as a result of that, and now he's fighting back. Judy Trin has the details.
In this border town, the Restigouche River separates New Brunswick from Quebec. This is Campbellton. 7 years ago, it embraced this immigrant doctor from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
You can go to Campbellton to ask what kind of physician is Dr. Ngola. I love these populations. But in one day, everything was destroyed.
They put this photo already on the internet.
Everything changed on May 27th, the day his COVID test came back positive. Within an hour, Ngola's name was leaked online, blamed for spreading the virus, then subjected to racist attacks on social media for weeks, like this one calling for his lynching.
They attack your pictures everywhere, and people become this guy is a small refugee. He come here, he bring the disease to spread everywhere.
3 hours later, the Premier pointed to the doctor as the source of a new outbreak in Campbellton.
A medical professional who traveled to Quebec for personal reason was not forthcoming about their reasons for travel upon returning to New Brunswick, and they did not self-isolate as a result.
The Premier did not name Ngola directly in his news conference, but 2 hours after his remarks, the doctor was suspended without pay from his job at the Campbellton Hospital. Then around supper time, he was notified that his 4-year-old daughter also tested positive for COVID-19. His life was in tatters within 6 hours.
Medicine for me is my life. I love medicine. I love medicine. But to be separated with my patients, it was also a shock for me.
Soon, Ngola was under a police investigation, all because he traveled to Montreal to pick up his daughter after her mother flew to Africa to attend a funeral. Before leaving Campbellton, Ngola called the provincial COVID hotline. He says he was told he didn't have to self-isolate when he returned because he was an essential worker.
They told me that you are physicians. When you'll be back in New Brunswick, there is no problem.
Joel Etienne is Ngola's lawyer. He says the doctor was scapegoated for the outbreak and will sue.
Calling on the criminalization of something that is not criminal, making accusations, singling out without any evidence. The province decided to act in a fashion that was completely contrary to how it should have been acting with respect to every other citizen.
The Campbellton outbreak grew to more than 40 cases and spread to a long-term care home where 2 residents died. Ngola's legal team hired a former RCMP officer to do their own contact tracing. The process took 30 days.
It's very, very unlikely that he is patient 0. There's so many other possibilities for that, and it doesn't appear to me that any of these possibilities have been examined until Dr. Ngola retained his counsel.
The investigator retraced Ngola's road trip on May 12 from Campbellton to Montreal. He spent the night at his brother's house, then left the next morning with his daughter. His brother would later test negative for the virus. Shortly before noon, Ngola stops in Trois-Rivières and meets with 2 local doctors to talk about joining their practice. They speak for about 20 minutes. The meeting in Trois-Rivières,
yes.
You're physically distanced, you're...
Physically distanced, mask and gloves.
After that, they stop in La Pocatière to buy gas and food. By 6 p.m., they're at the border in Edmundston and home by 9. Epidemiologists say it's unlikely Ngola was infected.
Overall, I mean, it's a short time. He wasn't in contact with a very small number of people. It would seem that the risk would be reasonably low of having actually been in contact with COVID-19 and contracted it during that time, but not impossible.
Vitality, we do not know if he's patient 1, 0, 4, or 5. We're not privy to that information.
Gilles Lantang was Ngola's boss. The CEO of the Vitalite Health Network suspended the doctor from working in the Campbellton Hospital. He says it was because Ngola broke the COVID protocol, not because of political pressure.
I would say that things happened very quickly, and that you know, from our angle, the situation was that Dr. Ngola was supposed to inform us if he was leaving the province.
Ngola believes he got the virus from working in the emergency room. 90 Campbellton Hospital workers, or 10% of staff, live in Quebec and cross over daily. The hospital depends on the help of more than 20 doctors from outside the province to provide services. These doctors don't isolate, and 20% of the hospital's patients are from Quebec.
It's not based in facts, but it's also not based in fairness. This is beyond the control of human measure.
Fighting for re-election, the Premier is unapologetic.
I had no knowledge of the individual until it appeared in social media. So The concerns that I've had throughout this pandemic is that we have to be cautious.
In the meantime, Ngola is focused on building a practice in a different small town, this time in Louisville, Quebec, where as a doctor, he doesn't have to cross borders to see his daughter. Judy Trin, CBC News, Gatineau.
Testing has determined that Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny was poisoned with a Soviet-era nerve agent. German authorities made the announcement today. Navalny, who is a fierce critic of Russian President Vladimir Putin, is being treated in Berlin.
Всегда. 20 лет подряд.
The German authorities say toxicology test results reveal Navalny, seen here, was poisoned with Novichok. The chemical was also used to poison a former Russian spy and his daughter in 2018. The German government has condemned Navalny's poisoning and is demanding a full and transparent investigation. Navalny's condition is improving, but local doctors are not sure if he will make a complete recovery. Well, the trial is underway in Paris for people charged in the attacks on a satirical magazine and a kosher supermarket. 17 people and all 3 gunmen died over 3 days in January of 2015. As Cindy Palm reports, the mood surrounding the trial is tense.
The wife of a Charlie Hebdo journalist who was killed in the attack said she could feel the tension in the courtroom. Gala Renault explained she wanted to be there in person to see what the defendants looked like. 14 people are being tried, charged with supplying weapons to the gunmen, financing terrorism, and being part of a terrorism organization. 3 out of the 14 are believed to have fled to Syria, so they're being tried in absentia. The magazine has decided to republish caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad that prompted the attack in the first place. Charlie Hebdo's editors said it was essential to publish the cartoons as the trial begins in order for the public to see the evidence for themselves, and that not publishing them would be cowardly. In January 2015, 2 brothers stormed the Paris offices of Charlie Hebdo and killed 12 people, including some of their best-known cartoonists. In the following days, another gunman killed a policewoman and 4 people at a Jewish supermarket. All 3 gunmen were killed by police. After the attacks, millions of people marched in the streets of Paris under the slogan Je suis Charlie, or I am Charlie. Then French President François Hollande and other world leaders also showed solidarity. Today, Hollande said Charlie Hebdo had the right to publish the caricatures because of freedom of expression, echoing the sentiment of the current president, Emmanuel Macron, who refused to condemn the magazine's decision. This trial will be the first terrorism-related one in France to be filmed, for archival purposes, and also to not forget what happened. Cindy Palm, CBC News, London.
Well, just 6 months after leaving their roles as senior royals, Prince Harry and his wife Meghan have new jobs with Netflix. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will produce nature shows, documentaries, as well as children's programming as part of a multi-year deal with the streaming service. The couple, who recently bought a home in Santa Barbara, California, say their focus is going to be on creating content that informs and gives hope. They already have several projects in development, including a nature series and one that's focused on inspirational women. It's not known how much their deal with Netflix is worth.
Well, who knows? Maybe their first doc will be about these guys. They have 4 legs and fur, they ride around on a bicycle, and they help with their owner's mental health struggles. Just take a look.
I have 2 magnificent companions. This is Yara and her half-sister River. I also began noticing, particularly last winter, that when River and I would go for our long jaunt, sometimes we're out for 10K or something, or we're going for a run, Yara was having difficulty keeping up with us. River, up, come on, baby. And so I thought if I could find a way to get Yara in a bike, she could still be outside with us, and if she got too tired, I'd be able to kind of keep her along for the ride. And really, the bike has been an absolute game changer for us. Being able to be outdoors under big sky on this beautiful island in my bike has absolutely been so essential for my mental health, my mental well-being. This is River, and this is her. What's been really beautiful for me as well, what I didn't expect, was how many people would actually come and say, "Can I meet your dogs?" And I think people take notice because they really haven't come across dogs this large in a bike. My life would be nowhere near as full, nor as deep, nor as high or joyful without my dogs. So for me, it's something that gives me a great deal of wonder and joy to realize in order to be fully human, in order to be deeply human, I have really needed animals to help me on that journey of awakening to that. And I'm so thankful for my dogs.
Ashley is back with your weather recap. So Ashley, how is the weather looking tomorrow?
Well, we've got an area of low pressure that's going to start to make its way in, and that means we're going to see some showers continuing for most of Labrador. We're going to see those showers make their way towards the west coast into the morning hours with some periods of rain as well. The winds are going to ramp up. We're looking at gusts anywhere from 40 to as much as 60 kilometers per hour. The rest of the island looking at a mix of sun and cloud tomorrow. However, some showers will make their way towards central into the afternoon. Most of the day should stay dry for the Avalon with some showers moving in late day. But tomorrow will feel a little bit more humid and temperatures will be fairly similar to today, maybe even a degree or 2 warmer.
All right, thanks, Ashley. And I guess pretty soon, Carol, people will be looking to Ashley for the long weekend forecast.
Yes, it's getting closer. Only a couple more days.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's pretty much it for us tonight. Again, tomorrow, a big day, as Peter Cowan mentioned right off the top of here now tomorrow, with more announcements about education and back to school next week.
Yeah, and at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're supposed to hear more about that COVID alert app that's going to be launching tomorrow. It's the national app, but we're going to be hearing more about how it's going to affect us here in this province. So that will be very interesting.
Yeah. So another big, busy news day in store tomorrow for sure, as well as other stories, no doubt. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Good night, everyone.